Good morning, everyone. Welcome as you start coming on in to Sick of This Shit Publications. I'm Nick Parrow, not your dad, joined by my good friend, Ellie Leonard, the panicked writer,
Hello.
for
Listen.
today's intelligent masculinity discussion. And I'm so freaking excited to have you back, Ellie. It's been too long since we've gotten to talk.
See, I know. I feel like you got my ball rolling. Like whenever it was, you were just such a hustler. And I remember, I will never forget. Like I was on, I think when your son broke his arm.
You
I think
were,
I
it
was in
was
that
us and
chat.
Zev.
It was us and Zev, and then I think, and I was just getting to know Zev, and then I was on, and then I think Dean reached out to you in the middle of one of our interviews, and you were like, "I gotta go, it's Dean, I gotta answer the phone." Now we all talk to Dean, so it was funny.
And now we
So
all talk
here
to
we
you, and
are.
now we're like
Yeah,
friends.
yeah. Now
And
it's no big deal.
I
I'm trying to
I
pull us
can't
up
believe
on
that
Substack.
and I do remember when we first met, it was you, me, and Frederick Pogue, and
Yes.
we did a couple episodes together right at the beginning of you starting all this, like, super Epstein
Yeah.
investigations, and from there, you have rocketed. Like, the
I
work
don't
you
know
were
why.
doing the work you were doing beforehand obviously was incredible because that's what
Thank
drew
you.
us to you, was the incredible work that you were doing, and it's just gotten the attention that it deserves, I think.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm so excited to see all the amazing, like, growth and response from the community for your efforts and for the work you're doing. So I just want to say you're fucking
Thank you.
awesome, Ellie.
Thank
Like,
you. I
you're
you know,
fantastic.
the what is it? The imposter syndrome in me goes, it's just algorithms and timing, some, because I was a writer for a long time before I got here, and it was like a lifetime of just rejection and
Mhm.
like how to maintain trusting your writing and that it's good enough even when nobody ever responds. I don't know, for people who've tried to publish a book, like it's 98% ghosting. Like nobody will ever answer your emails if you try to get a literary agent or reach out to a publisher or try to publish something in a newspaper or magazine. Like it's just, they're like, if you don't hear from us in 12 weeks, we didn't like it. And it's just a lot of not hearing from people and keeping spreadsheets of who to not double up on. So it's been really joyful to come here and, not at all planned. This was not in my game plan for the year. My friend Tiffany always has a word for the year, and I never did. And I think I've been thinking about this, and I think my word slash two words for the year is plot twist because I just never saw this coming. I never had a plan to be here. I'm very happy to be here, but like terrified at the same time. So,
Yeah.
and then still hopes that like this may lead to a writing career somewhere down the line, which would be very cool. So, yeah.
Well, I think you're making a writing career already. Like,
Well, thank you.
so I don't think you have to worry about the down the line. Like, I think you're making a career out of it, whether that was your intention or not. And it's amazing to see. And I'm glad
Thank you.
you're able to do that. Like,
Yeah, I'm really, really
you look
thankful.
just like the relaxation you have on your face compared to when we first met. You don't look so panicked anymore.
My rent is paid. That
I
is
know,
the
like,
difference.
it makes
Yeah,
such a difference too when you know
makes a
that your
difference.
basic
Yeah,
needs are met,
yeah.
and you can see it. Like, you're
Mhm.
not as panicked looking as you were
I know.
6
And
months
now I
ago.
can't rebrand because it's been too long. No one will know
But
who
it's
I am.
but it's still perfect. I mean,
Yeah.
you're the less panicked writer. Eventually,
Oh,
you're just gonna
thank
keep rebranding it from the
you.
panic unpaid to the panic less
Calm
paid
writer, the horizontal writer.
to the tangential writer to
Yeah,
whatever I am now writer.
yeah, yes.
So I know pretty much everybody knows who you are, Ellie,
Oh, thank you.
because you're fantastic and we're seeing your name everywhere. I'm on different platforms now and I just hear, like, people talking or seeing on
Yeah.
comments like Ellie Leonard, like, this was Ellie, like, and I see your stuff everywhere and it's awesome to see. And
Oh,
I'm just
thank
so
you.
happy that this community helped push you into a place where, like, you are not panicked. And that's so
I'm
fun to
panicked
see.
for other reasons now, I
You're
think.
panicked for other reasons. Yeah. 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 There's other reasons you're panicking now.
Yeah.
Um, But can you introduce yourself to everyone just a
Yeah,
little bit? Give a little background, and we'll get into the actual questions here in a little bit. But I just want some of your thoughts on some of the things going on because I love hearing what you got to say. So,
sure. Okay.
can you introduce yourself a little bit for everyone before we get into anything else?
Okay. Well, my name's Ellie, and I'm a transplant. I'm living right outside New York City, and came here from Missoula, Montana. So I'm a little bit of a country mouse in the city. Prior to that, we were from the West Coast, and we're a railroad family, so we kind of go where the railroad takes us work wise. And I have 4 kids, and I have always been a writer. It's looked like different things over my lifetime. I have a small business. It's mostly shuttered at this point because AI kind of took that away from me. But that introduced me to the world of journalism and connected me to a lot of really great written journalists in like the New York Times and different newspapers and magazines. And so I sort of trickled in doing that for years, and then came to Substack after I wrote 2 books and they did nothing and wouldn't publish, and it was very disappointing. um, I write a lot of fiction because that gives me joy. I like to write stories for my kids. I like to write stories, of just things that I don't think could ever happen, and creating worlds for myself, I guess. Um, and in part of that, I've really bounced through this narrative of the Me Too movement, but in various iterations. So with my work prior to this, I was working on the Harvey Weinstein case, through the media, through Jodi Cantor and Megan Twohey's book. And they were the ones who, along with Ronan Farrow, broke the story of Harvey Weinstein in the beginning. So I got to work on that. I worked on the Woody Allen case. I worked on, Kanye West and a few of these other stories, and then a lot of local law enforcement cases that sort of take a similar bent as some of this Epstein stuff. And so that filtered into my writing and the things that I wrote about. And publishers pushed back on me and said that we are tired of reading stories of women reclaiming their rights and their narratives and their identifications and this whole Me Too idea. We don't want to publish that anymore. We're bored. That was the response I got from a lot of people in the industry, which is obviously frustrating. And then at some point, I just had been rejected so many times. I think I reached out to 220 different literary agents and was rejected by 153 of them. And then most of the rest were ghosting. And then I had a literary agent for a little bit, and then they jumped ship, and it was just me again. And my close friend, who's also on Substack, her Substack is called The Modern Jezebel, and she is very fantastic. Tiffany Torres Williams, she said, please come to Substack and write because you love it. And so I thought, okay, I can do that for a little while. I'll just write cathartically. I'll write essays. I'll write about, things that I love, experiences that I have. I'm a little bit memoir-esque. I think there's probably a memoir in my future at some point. Um, and so I did that, and then that sort of turned a little bit around the election because I'm pretty political. I'm very passionate. We pay attention to a lot of the immigration issues in our area, and I have 4 kids, and so I am leading them through life in the best way that I know, teaching them on their level about the things happening around them. Going to the Women's March in DC, doing different things. And then as Trump, came tromping back into the White House, I started hearing about some of these Epstein stories and stories of survivors. And it just turned my writing. It wasn't intentional. I think it was curiosity at first. And then there was a really big response. And I had been really hungry to do something that helped, and not just for myself, or not just to, go to work and make a paycheck to for no reason, you know what I mean? Go clock in, clock out. I wanted to do something that helped at some point or somewhere, and I thought that that would be like immigration nonprofits, but it turned into this, and then it just kind of exploded. I don't really know how that happened, but I'm really proud of it. I'm really proud to be able to help. I still try to maintain a little bit of life in the shadows because I don't like the idea of being front and center when it's not about me. But I think it's just such an important topic that we have to continue to spotlight, until it's fixed, which, we've got a very long way to go.
You're incredible. Again, I'll just say it again. You're
Thank you.
incredible. Like the work you've done around all of the cases is incredible, from Weinstein and others forward. Like
Mhm.
you have you have done a service for others just as part of your normal job, and
Mhm.
like making sure transcripts are correct. When you were doing
Right.
transcripts corrections, like that could make or break a case
Yeah.
in the legal world. That could make or break freedom for somebody or getting a conviction that they are trying to
Yep.
seek. um, and so the work you've done has always been really beneficial and really supportive for those around you. And now the work you're doing is even more so, I think, because
Mhm.
it's adding on to and building off of the work you had done before.
Yeah.
Um, and you have built and worked with a large number of people in the community to, like, you've built support systems for yourself and for Zev and others who are
Mhm.
doing this research, with a lot of support from folks in the community. And there's
Yes.
a network of you who are doing all of this incredibly hard work. And I just
Mhm.
want to shout out, like, how amazing that is.
There's a
And
good people on here. Yeah.
there's so many amazing good people. And Ellie, I want to ask, what is it what is it like being in this moment for you, and
Mhm.
what does it feel like for you that you and this community that you have around you are doing?
I've said this a few times, but it's a little like I joke about being panicked now, but it's not totally a joke. Like I spent a lot of my career being a fly on the wall with these bigger stories that have somehow intertwined. Like Weinstein, Woody Allen, Epstein they're all now culminating in one story where they all exist. And I at some points I didn't like being totally in the background all the time because I felt a little bit like a cog in a machine and nobody knew I existed. But I don't think I appreciated it as much as maybe I should have, because it can be a little terrifying to be front and center and visible and known as you talk about these things. I think that's never been a very comfortable place for me. I know that's kind of part of what needs to happen in order for stories to be told. But in so doing, some of my favorite parts of all of this is making this giant new network of friends. Like I never ever in my wildest dreams expected to have like a big group of friends out of writing about terrible stories, and that has really become what's happened. And sometimes that means meeting in person, sometimes that means just phone calls at 11 o'clock at night all the time. I have people who reach out to me at 2 a.m. um, and and I think it's been a pleasant surprise to discover that, a lot of these people I've watched my whole life. I've seen on the news. I have seen at major events. They felt very big, right? And I was just your average Joe. And meeting them in person and getting to know them, especially the offline, right? Like lives are wonderful, but like the phone calls that are not public, that are just us talking while we're doing the dishes or eating dinner or whatever, are really you know, they're just so kind and so helpful, and you realize that true journalism exists, and it exists in this world where people are not hoarding stories, right, for the glory of telling that story or that breaking news or that scoop, right? The idea of a scoop. You have people who are sharing information because they need it to be known, because it helps someone. And so you have these, big folks like Katie Fang and Jim Acosta and these people who are intensely good journalists and amazing and have been around, so long. And like they will call you up and they'll be like, "Hey, are you going to talk about this? I'm going to talk about this too. Let's collaborate. How can I help you? Like, what are you worried about? What is stressing you out right now?" Someone for me, I bring her up a lot, but it's Maritza Giorgio of the Grounded podcast, and she just like scooped me up I mean, and maybe it's because we're both from Missoula, but like she scooped me up and has been this sort of stable, safe place of, when you feel out of control or like things are too hard and you're spiraling in this world of, terrible information. Let's be honest, it's not usually good news. I need you to call me and tell me, and I don't care what time of day it is, just call me and we'll break it down, and then we'll say goodnight and all will be well. And I get that a lot. I just get these phone calls at random where people are checking in, going, "How are you doing? Is this okay? Do you feel okay? Are you stressed out? How can I help?" And that has just been something I never ever expected in my wildest dreams. And it's been really, just really great to understand what has gone on behind the scenes and who these people are, that they are normal, they're completely normal, they are not movie stars, they are not hot shots, but that they are just such decent human beings, beyond that. So that has been really, really special.
I love that. And that leads in. Sorry, my dog bells go off. My folks are in town, so it might be them coming in, but it's also
Oh yeah,
it's also
she's like, you turned your
trash day.
microphone on, Dad.
Oh, you turned it on? We're gonna start barking.
Yes.
All three of us. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So I wanted to build off of what you were saying in there because you have had the unfortunate um, path of having to work on stories that expose and probably talk to folks who are part of
Mhm,
the worst types of masculinity there are
mhm.
out there. And I know we've both been on an interview episode where we saw some really toxic masculinity get
Yes, we did.
spewed at our friend Zev.
Yeah.
Um, and you have also gone into stories and you were talking about hoarding wealth and knowledge, and you have
Mhm.
gone really hard at certain people because they have done that. They have
Yeah.
explicitly hoarded wealth and knowledge and didn't publish what was needed to provide safety for victims and
Yeah.
survivors. Um, how has that influenced your view of men and masculinity, um, with both the knowing that you have seen and you read a lot about and you transcribe a lot about the worst of men, but you've also gotten to work with some really incredible men.
Oh, yeah.
And how has that dichotomy of experiences shaped your view of masculinity?
Well, coming into this, like I said, it's not my first rodeo, but I'm also in a very, very lucky position to not be someone who is sexually abused. I think that is extremely rare. And so I also think it's a responsibility to be working on these stories because I'm not triggered by them. I can be objective about them, and I can really, there are joyful parts of this job, and that is watching somebody, and maybe this sounds terrible, but like watching somebody who did horrible things stop getting away with it, right? Being called out and seeing consequences. Those are joyful moments. I'm not going to lie, because um it's been a very long time for many of these women, and to see people who are just walking around, with money in their pocket and popularity, who did horrible things to children or allowed horrible things to happen to children, um, it feels good. It feels good to take them down. I'm not gonna lie. Um, but as far as like that idea of toxic masculinity, it it is something, I do not believe the boys will be boys. I do not believe the stuff where we say, "Oh, they're just born with certain traits and things are intuitive and they're, when we look at Dateline episodes and 99% of them are men, that is not something that little boys are born with. They are not born with the sense that they are better, that they are more important, that they deserve more. All that is a narrative that they are taught, and they're taught very young. um, I have 3 boys, and I will tell you, we live in a very equal opportunity household. They have not been raised to think that they will get something that their sister will not get. Every once in a while, they'll come home from school and say something like, "Oh, that's a boy job," or, "Oh, that's a," and we have a conversation about it. It's not a condemning conversation, but we talk about how every job, is capable by 2 people, and we talk about the inequality of women in the workplace. We talk about a lot of that stuff down to, like, every time my 9-year-old gets a pair of pants, he's like, "My pockets are really deep." "Your pockets suck, mom." Like, he's like, "Why is that?" And I said, "Well, that's a great question." But, like, I think about, when they were really little, and, something that used to bother me, and some grocery stores are really good about this, but something that used to really bother me is we'd go in the checkout stand and they would have all the magazines and all the fashion magazines, and they really emphasize the women's body as, sexual objects, and they're all at eye level for small kids. And a lot of grocery stores are figuring out that they don't have to do that in the checkout stand where a lot of people have children. You can have, they call them family friendly checkout stands, where they have, like, arts and crafts magazines and things like that, but it's like that probably should be the norm, and then the sexual stuff should probably, or not that it's sexual. I mean, these women are choosing to be in the magazines. It's their body, it's their, their choice. But just the objectifying of a woman's body, and making it just sort of the standard environment around little boys, it teaches them something. And that was something they didn't learn from our home, right? They didn't learn how to objectify the woman's body in our home. I had 4 kids and breastfed all of them until they were like 35, and then and then tandem, when they had a little brother, they would tandem nurse. So they saw the woman's body as, like, very functional and purposeful. And I remember going through Dillard's in Montana, which is a big department store, and we were going through, like, the bra section, and they were like, "Oh, mom, boobies, I'm hungry." Like, it means something so different to them, because they were not raised in this world where the woman's body was sexualized. They were raised in where it was functional and it served a purpose for them. And those are the things that they it's a basis, and they're going to have to go out in the world, and they're going to be in public schools, and they're going to hear things that they didn't learn at home. But it's the best that we can do to sort of form form a pathway for them to think about women and masculinity and what everything means, and self-value. I don't, by teaching my boys about equality and women's rights, and really focusing on that, we don't pull away from the value of them and their rights and who they are in society and what they're capable of doing. Like, it's not taught to them of one is better than the other, one you have to, talk about all the time, so you're less than. um but it is something that is a discussion, because they live in a place where they continue to hear that men are better or stronger or wiser, or can be in soccer, right? Like, this idea of, I want to grow up and be a soccer player, but Charlotte can't grow up and be a soccer player because she's a girl, right? And so we have those discussions, and I think they're really, they're really good. I get to hear what they think and how they process things, and it's made them very intelligent. It's made them very um, gentle, like they're gentle souls. And I hope as they grow and they go out in the world, they're kind and they're loving, and they are, fighters and advocates for rights of all people. So I hope that's the platform that we've given them.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that you are giving your boys an example, and your daughters, boys, kids, all of them an example. The
Mhm.
cluster of children you have,
Yeah,
a
the army.
perfect, your little army. Like, I'm
Yeah,
glad you're giving them a great example of what
yeah.
it means to be a mom, in what in is from the feminine side. And
Mhm.
I talk a lot about feminine versus masculine, not
Right.
female versus male. That
Yeah.
way, because that's just how our language works right now. I can't change our language structure on this. And it does work out on, like, what we
Mhm.
consider traits, but we need to take the genderized stigmatisms away from them. And I
Yeah.
think that's really important for me on that. Is like, the most important people in my life have been both masculine and feminine in different
Mhm.
ways, but depending on the person. Like, my mom has some very masculine traits about her.
Yeah.
She's very strong in a room. When my mom comes
Mhm.
into a room, you listen. And that is something
Yeah.
we associate with masculine traits, but it's not really
Yeah.
masculine. It's just authority. and
Right.
having that presence around. And it's great to see that you are doing that with your kids just in
Right.
general, because it's really hard. I mean, I have a son and a
Mhm.
daughter, and it's really hard when all of the messaging is targeted to my son is, you don't have to take accountability for shit. You can just
Mhm.
do what
Yeah.
you want. If it doesn't go your way, then it's somebody else's problem. And we
Yeah.
have to
And
teach.
be tough at all costs, right? Be tough
Mhm.
constantly.
Yeah. Yeah, and we have to teach, like, that is wrong, that
Mhm.
is a terrible view of what it means to be a person, because
Yeah.
intelligent masculinity is really intelligent humaning, and it's just be a better person, or like we
Yeah.
say here a lot, is just suck less,
Suck less. Yeah.
because you should just suck less. It is
Yeah.
male privilege, and it's the assumption of that we have space in a room just because we exist, and because we have
Yeah.
a penis between our legs is really what it is because we have a penis, we are given space, which is
And I think
bullshit.
yeah. Yeah. I think so much of it is what they see in your home. That is like 80% of how they develop as a small child. And that's tough because not all homes, not everybody can control their home environment. Not all home environments are great. But as much as you can teach your children in their space, because your home is where they are most of the time. Like for me, I don't know if this term is still PC, but I was a tomboy. Like I was very, I played boys sports. I fought to play boys sports. My dad fought for me to play boys sports when I was a kid because they separated us out. We weren't allowed to play baseball. We had to play softball, and I said, "No, I want to play baseball." I did things that I wasn't supposed to do. I wasn't the kid with all the makeup, surprise surprise. And it's interesting because my daughter is much more feminine than I am. She likes all the makeup. She likes all the pink, and I want to jump in and be like, "No, you need to be more like rah." But that's what she loves, and I embrace whoever she becomes and whatever she loves. But for me, like I was very much given the space to fight for what I wanted, within reason and kindness and goodness in the world. But also have an opinion, right? That idea of speaking up and being heard, that we see so much in the media. When you run across somebody who is famous, or like I think of Megan, as of Megan and Harry, like when you have somebody in a position where women are not supposed to speak up, and they are someone who's vocal and they are someone who's opinionated, they're immediately discounted as being like hysterical or bossy or bitchy, because they have an opinion, or because they do things, they don't sort of like quietly teeter around in the background. And that is something that I really, really fight for all the time. Like and this could just be me, but like I really fight to take the word bitch out of our vocabulary, because it's something that is still acceptable. It's something that's still said every day, and people don't bat an eye. But it's a term used to describe a woman who is being, right, a Karen. That's another term like that we hear much more often than a male version. Like that we're this, if you think of like the biblical sense, we're always the one causing the problem. We're always the one making other people do bad things. We're always the one who is too loud, too upset, too opinionated, too angry, too hysterical. And that's still societally accepted to have terminology every day in music, in language, and everything to talk about women like that. Whereas in other, cultures or groups, we're starting to pull away from those, that wording for people or groups of people, because we realize that it's inappropriate. That has maintained, and people still use it every day. And so things like that, like I think about them, and I think about like the world that I want my kids to grow up and how we treat each other, and just the sense of being powerful. Like this idea that, if mom speaks up, if mom is writing an article to take down some guy who's doing horrible things, like I'm not overreacting. I'm not being hysterical. Like Michael Wolff called me, he called a few of us. He said we're opportunists and we are in this hysteria. Um, when people say things like that, it's not because I'm going over the top. It's because I'm being powerful and I'm fighting back from the thing that you're already doing. I didn't ask you to do that, but you did it. And now I'm reacting to it. And so that's kind of that's sort of like my approach, and I think my kids get that, because again, we started this very, from day one with them, and they don't see it as, oh, mom, this, that. They're just like, oh, that's what mom does, that's what she does day to day, and that's good. So
Yeah. I think it's important what you talk, especially words like saying bitch or pussy or
mhm.
things like that when we
Yeah.
describe, especially for men, it's really, really powerful when we stop using those words, when we
Yeah.
stop
Even
fucking
for
doing it.
women who are terrible people. This is something
Yes.
that I try to talk about every day. There are some really, really terrible women in the Trump administration doing terrible, terrible things. But I ask men to stop using that terminology towards women. You can hate them. They can be terrible people, and recognizably so, for the things that they're doing. But using those terms like cunt and bitch and hysterical and all the things that we've been told for years and years perpetuates it on all women. And so I just
Hmm.
ask people to try to take that out, and it's a learning process for a lot of people, because again, these are terrible people, and it's really hard not to comment on them. But it doesn't help any woman if you continue to use that on any woman.
Yeah. And I advocate, especially around men, is if you can, take the gendered version out of it. But if you can't, use male anatomy when we talk about, when we insult other people, use our own anatomy. Don't
Yeah,
use a female's, because
yeah,
women's anatomy isn't the
yeah,
same as ours. Ours is
yeah.
weak. Men's anatomy is soft and weak. Everybody knows
Right,
this. Every fucking person knows this, is that if you kick a man in the balls, that is a low blow, and he's going to fall over crying because he's a wuss, because he got kicked really hard
right,
and his body shriveled up, and it hurts a
right.
lot. But we also know that if you were to say kick a woman in the same spot, she's not going to fall over the same way. Like,
No, she will
it's
probably
not
kill
going to
you.
hurt in the same way. And so I
Yeah.
have taught I'm I specifically use male
Mm,
anatomy when I talk about the men in the regime. And
yeah.
I don't use anatomy when I talk about the women in the
Yeah, and
regime. I just
yeah.
call them awful. They're just horrible
Yeah.
people.
You can be a
They're,
horrible person. That is recognizable, and it's okay to point it out.
yeah.
Um, But I think, yeah, we just, there are terms that we used even 10 years ago that we would be shocked to use now. And I won't bring any of them up, but like that should be going that route. Like those words should be going away. But I think with women, that's always the last thing to go.
Hmm. Yeah. And that's the hardest part, is reteaching ourselves how to speak, because
Mm,
especially if
it is.
you're older, it takes years, it takes
Yeah.
effort, it takes time to try and retrain the way we speak, our
But it's not
terminology.
impossible, right?
Yeah, it's not
You know,
impossible.
I have a trans person in my life. And that was hard, but not impossible to start to relearn the, gender pronouns and new names and things like that. It wasn't intuitive, right? It was something that I had to think about and actively change, but it wasn't impossible, and it got easier pretty quickly as long as I continued and I was consistent with it. And it's not a burden, right? It's like any new thing you learn. We do new learning all the time. It's not a burden to learn something new, but you have to put in the effort to try. It's not on somebody else to take on that burden for you to change. And so yeah, it's a very simple thing. We do this all the time, but I think, so again, society, if you think of like music, right? Music uses bitch all the time. And I do feel differently when women say it about themselves, and I think that's culturally, like, people can use terminology on themselves if it applies to themselves versus on some other group of people. It's not great, but I feel better about it. But I don't think it mostly is women talking about themselves. I think it's, men talking about women.
Yeah. And like, we see it in books. There's a really good series out that a lot of people really enjoy right now, the Dungeon Crawler Carl series. It uses gendered terminology pretty prolifically, and that's my
Mhm.
one gripe about it,
Yeah.
is it is that it's
Mhm.
you we're so normalized to the idea that now, like, that I have actively worked on
Yeah.
changing my language. I notice it more. And I
Yeah.
and it's not well, it's not about policing speech, Jinx. It's a
No.
it's a it's a
It's
it is
growth.
free speech. It's growth. it's
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 growth.
realizing
Yeah.
that words that you're using are just not good words, or
Right.
good,
It's
they're
like
not descriptive.
very often on Twitter, you see people use the R word over and over again. That has become like a shock value word for the MAGA party is to use the R word. And I think most people know what I mean when I say the R word. I'm not going to say it. Um, it's growth to not use that anymore. We're not policing you. We're not telling you how to live your life. And I often hear this from older people in my life, like, I have the right to, it's free speech. I have the right to say whatever I want. Yeah, but it's tact, right? It's kindness, it's respect for your fellow man. Like it's treating other people well. So you grow and you learn and you move on from words that take somebody down and make somebody feel less than or make somebody feel unworthy. You choose not to say them. It's not because I'm going to come after you. It's not because I'm going to fight you in the comments. It's because it's the right thing to do. And we all grow and we change and we can look back on our lives and be like, wow, I can't believe I said that there or did that there. And I'm really, there's things I think about myself where I'm like, wow, I'm really glad social media didn't exist back then because I would probably said some horrible things. Like we grow and society grows. And I don't think that's wrong to ask us to try, you know. We're not going to fight you, but we could try. We could do better.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's about encouraging ourselves to be better,
Mhm.
because when we all want to grow forward. Yeah, it's TM. That's a great comment.
Should look at the
It
comments.
well, I disagree on its policing speech, but I
Yeah.
think the comment itself is a really good comment. Is I'll read the second part of after it is some speech is simply not appropriate in polite society. That's what
Yeah.
boundaries are. I would say instead of policing speech, that's just social norms and
Yeah.
social
Social
that's the
justice.
social construct and contract we
Mhm.
have. And it's the paradox of tolerance is we don't have to tolerate certain types of speech, and it is not intolerable of us to say your speech is hateful.
Mhm.
We will not tolerate it in polite society.
Right.
And it takes us all doing an effort to change that. And that's part of this discussion is asking the question of what does intelligent masculinity mean for men right
Mhm.
now, to figure out what does it mean for us to be intelligently masculine. And I have a definition around it. And Ellie, do you want me to read my definition
Yeah.
for
Go
you,
for
or
it.
do
Go
you
for
want
it.
me to ask you what your idea would be before I read it?
No, I want you to read it because I like it's one of those things where I know, of course, I know what intelligent masculinity is, but ask me to put it in a phrase, I can't do it.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So, in my eyes, and this could easily be translated to intelligent humaning or just better humaning. But
Mhm.
intelligent masculinity is the refusal to outsource accountability onto others and the discipline to live with the consequences of our values and actions. And that's
Feels
it.
simple.
Feels simple,
Feels
but
simple.
it
It
asks a
applies
lot
to
of you.
everyone. Yeah.
Yeah, and it asks a lot of you personally.
Yeah.
It's why we don't try and reclaim. I don't reclaim words. I don't. There's like certain
Yeah.
words I'm not trying to reclaim. There's symbology I don't want to reclaim.
Mhm.
Like there's things that I don't care to try and do. I just want to better myself because I
Yeah.
know that I've seen myself in the past and I've seen where I am now, and it's a very
Mhm.
different person, and I've
Yeah.
grown a lot,
And that's I
and
think
that's a good
all of
thing.
us. Yeah, I don't think there's a single one of us now, granted, you see people do terrible things, but I think if you asked someone like an Elon Musk or, Donald Trump, maybe not Donald Trump, but like some of these people who are pretty horrible, if you asked them if they were trying to be a better person every day, they would tell you yes, despite the choices they're making. And the clear, obvious answer is no. Everybody is trying to better themselves and just be the best version of themselves every day in the world. And it doesn't take a lot. Like I think people, like you look back at old old laws that came in, like when we had to wear seatbelts and that became a law and people threw fits, and or when they took smoking out of restaurants and that became a law and people threw fits, and everything was against somebody's rights, and how common sense things are now that back then was just so terrible. It's just growth. It's just trying to treat the person who's standing next to you on the street that you don't know better, like just treating them well. And I will give an example. We lived in Antioch, Tennessee for 6 months, my husband and I, when we first got married, and which is right outside of Nashville. We both worked at a car dealership. It was a rough time. It's not something I would like to go back and do. Um, I made great friends at this car dealership, but pretty much straight across the board, everybody was some level of racist, right? You just couldn't get away from it. It existed, and racism that I hadn't ever heard before, coming from like Seattle, right? Like racism against Irish people and Asians and Hispanics and Black people and everybody. Like I just had never experienced this level of racism before, but it was very casual racism, except for it didn't feel casual. Um, I met people there that I got along with, but I knew that about them. And they respected me enough that when I started working there, I set my boundary and I said, if I ever hear anything come out of your mouth around me, if I ever hear a single word come out of your, I will walk away and I will not be back here. I won't come back. You won't hear from me. You won't see me. And that was a boundary that I set. And they learned very quickly. I don't know how they changed their points of view, but they learned very quickly, I can't be racist around this person. I can't treat people poorly around this person. And it sucks to still be around people who still believe those things. Like I wish that could have changed. But it was my job and I had to go to work. But like that's just a boundary that I set. And it wasn't a very hard boundary. It was an easy boundary for them to be like, oh, okay, I can't be a total asshole around her. Okay. Um, but that's a growth mechanism, right? Like you wouldn't let people just sit there and you see these videos of people, it's like the restaurant like being really racist toward like a waiter or a cashier or something like that, and people just sitting there and not saying anything. Like I just don't know how we can look back on the things that used to be acceptable in language and not consider how we can change our language today. Like there's things that we obviously wouldn't just sit back and be like, oh wow, they just said that. Okay, cool. Like there are words that would be immediate no's. And that the things we say now will be an immediate no sometime in the future, but that takes growth.
Yeah. And this leads really well. Andrew in our chat asked a really great question. What tips do you have if your friends are using anti-women or other types of offensive language? His answer is, I try to be direct and tell them that your language is bigoted, but interested in your thoughts. I say call them out. You have to.
Yeah.
Part of living with the consequences of your values and actions is you actually have to live your values and actions. You can't just say them,
Yeah.
or else they're platitudes and talking points. And unless you actually actively go out and correct your friends or people around you when they say these things, those are not living your values. Living your values is
Yeah.
going to that family member who said it and calling them out. And it is tough. It is
And
hard.
even if you pull them aside and it's something quiet and be like, hey, I really don't like it when you use that word,
Mhm.
like that bothers me personally. I think if they're your friends, if they're your true good friends and they know you well and they respect you and they know that you're not like a person they've never met before correcting them on the street, like I think that they will listen to you. I mean, I don't think that would bother most people and be like, ugh, dude, don't use that word. Like that super bothers me. I know, I get what it's kind of like, I get what you're saying, but like, let's try something else, to where you're not humiliating them. You're a person that you both value each other, but this is something important to me, then that will matter to them. Like they're your friend. They
Mhm.
care about what you think. And people have said that to me. I remember there were like words and terminology I used to use when I was a kid. And it was just from like a lot of my family was from Montana and they were very old school and like, you know, very isolated from any kind of diversity. And it wasn't like racist or anything like that, but there were things that I didn't even know were wrong, that were words that I had learned. And then I started hanging out with this family who was very liberal and they affected me a lot as I grew up. They taught me a lot. And I would say things and they're like, you can't say that. do you know what that means? And do you know why that's wrong to say? And I would just be like, oh, I had no idea. And in my head, these were people who loved me. And so immediately I was like, I never knew that. I'm really sorry. Like, what should I say instead? And they're like, oh, this is what you say. And it wasn't offensive to me. And I was a kid, like it wasn't offensive to me. I just was like, oh, I totally didn't even know. I had no idea. And that can still happen once in a while where I will have heard something I don't know it's associated with something negative. I try not to repeat things that I don't understand so that it doesn't happen. But like that could hypothetically happen now where I say something and I don't realize that it's denigrating to some group of people or a specific person. And if it's somebody that I know and love, or even if it wasn't, even if it was like a librarian that, or somebody in a shop, like if somebody says that to me, I'm going to think about it, right? And that's all we're asking people to do is just think about it. Think about the language, and if it takes someone down or if it lifts them up. I mean, it's so simple. I mean, we're diving into it, but it's really, really simple.
Yeah, and it's also, I think, in a lot of ways too, is the shift from criticism to a critique, where
Yeah.
you are critiquing something that is deemed inappropriate. You're not
Yeah.
criticizing the person as a being. And that's that's a more subtle difference, but it's, I think, a really important one is like, we're
Mhm.
trying to fix the idea, not, or change the idea, and not a person. Like, I don't want to change your personhood. I Maybe your personality, but not your personhood and the
Right.
ideas that have shaped your personality. Those are the things that we want to try and address. And it does take hard work of
Yeah.
us repeatedly reminding folks in a way that is a critique and not a criticism of who they are. It's a
Right.
critique of the action.
And it starts at home, like, at our house, it
Hmm.
starts at home with our kids, like, in the same way. I mean, I'm not, when I talk to friends or whatever, I'm not speaking down to a child, but, like, in our home, when I teach my kids to change their language about something, or, make sure, like, if they say something, if I give them something and they don't say thank you, I say thank you. They know it's not because I need praise and thanks, it's because when they go out in the world and they take something from someone else, they make sure they say thank you to that person. Like, the things we teach at home are so that when they are not around us, they choose the right thing to say. And so when you have a close friend or somebody that you go, "Ugh, I really don't like that word. If we could probably change that, that'd be really great." It's not because in this moment I need you to change it. It's because now you're gonna go walk around in the world and talk to your other friends. Like, it'd be great if we didn't, you know, continue to use this word out in the world. Like, it'd be helpful. This means a lot to me. I'm not gonna make you do it. But this is how I feel about it. Maybe you haven't thought about that. And yeah.
Yeah, and for men, I know, and I know this from personal experience, is it can be hard to confront other men because just like women are taught in society that to fear men, that men will hurt them.
Mhm.
That like because I've seen it and I've heard it talked about um, is that women are taught that men get hurt by their words and
Mhm.
men will hurt them in response. Men are also taught that men will hurt you in response as another man if you challenge their authority and you challenge their being. And so it can be difficult, especially if you're in a
Right.
group of other men who aren't used to being criticized or critiqued.
Mhm.
That first step is always hard. You will find your friends, though. You will, in the end, find your real friends by doing these things because
Right.
you'll find people who are unwilling to change. And if they're unwilling to
Right.
change, they don't respect you in the way that you need. And sometimes it's worth moving on. And you find your
And
true friends through this.
yeah. And just like society has narratives about what women are supposed to be and what our roles are supposed to be and how we respond to things, we have narratives about men that they're not good communicators and that they can't handle emotion. And they're fully capable of both just as much as a woman is, but we've created this sort of society norm that they shouldn't be emotional and that they shouldn't communicate with each other well. They should, grunt and bump elbows or whatever. And
Do the head
fully,
nod thing.
yeah, like fist bump. Um, both are, fully, where our brains are functioning mostly at the same level, that we're both capable of communicating and being emotional on a base level of being able to talk to each other. And that is something that we could change in society, and how we speak to men and how we raise our boys is allowing for emotions and teaching them how to say the thing that they need or say the thing that they feel, and raise up these little boys who know how to talk to each other, right? We have, and some of it's intuitive. We've got kids who are huge communicators at our house, and then we have kids who are not intuitively very communicative. And that is, that's DNA. Some are, some aren't. But like, as you grow, I hope that is something that changes in our society, is allowing men to like learn to talk and like enjoy talking and speaking to each other and having that kind of relationship where they can say something and it's not, you're not going to get like shut out, and I'm not going to talk to you for 3 days because now I'm all uncomfortable. Like, be uncomfortable, but then like talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Like my friend Shared Sweeney over at Centered America, when he came on for his interview, he's 19 years old. Dude is freaking incredible. Like, he and his friend Gavin have started a 501c4 that's nationally
Very cool.
registered, and they're trying to recenter the discussion in America so that it's not based on bullshit. Um,
Sounds like
and
a
when I talked with
good idea.
him, he was like, I needed to find a group of men that I could cry around.
Yeah.
And you
And
need that.
people like
Men need that.
instinctively they go, oh,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Like,
That's the
men
instinct
hear that. I still hear that. And I go,
Yeah.
I don't know if I need a group I can
Feels
cry around.
weird.
But then
Yeah.
I'm like, I do though. Like, I've actively
Right.
built groups that I can cry around that are men.
Right.
And it's the permission structure to feel our emotions in ways that are constructive rather than destructive.
Yeah.
And that's the shift. Is It's something that I have picked up from women. You Women tend to be much better, and I say tend because not all women are. I'm not
Right.
going to use the all men all women thing, and or all anybody in between. Is Many women are just better at talking and feeling their emotions no matter who they are.
Mhm.
They're just, because society teaches them to be able to.
Yeah.
I'm trying to teach my son, and my wife is trying to teach our son to be able to speak about his emotions in the same way that we were teaching our daughter to speak about
Yeah.
hers, so that we all have the same language and we can all use the right words. And those words are really important. And Ellie, I'm so glad you focus a lot on that with your kids and
Mhm.
the
Well,
starting at home, because that's so
absolutely.
important.
We do, like, my husband and I both really emphasize that if you need to cry, it's okay to cry. Like, it's, there's good crying, and then there's like, of course, manipulative crying because you want something, or you got in trouble and you're mad. But like, really, that idea of, if you had a hard day, if you're tired, if you're really sad or scared about something, like, you don't have to hold it all in and feel terrible. I think I have a very close friend that we get on Marco Polo and we probably talk like 3 times a day, like every day consistently. And I think of like how many times either of us has broken down in those conversations and how legitimate the things we broke down over were, like people dying and
Mhm.
crises and fear and things that are very legitimately upsetting and worth our emotions. And I think, like, do men do that? Do they get on there where they're just like, for example, we had back last fall, we had like a family crisis that involved all our friends, where a little boy in our network from our old school fell off a parade float and got killed, like in the middle of the homecoming parade, 12 years old, like horrific circumstances. Everybody was grieving. Um, and I think in those moments, like, teaching men that they can't cry, or that they're not supposed, that they have to be strong, right? Be strong for the women, right? That idea. And it's like, man, how heart wrenching that you couldn't just go in in your pillow and cry in that moment, or talk to a friend and cry. Like, that is something to cry about. That's devastating and leads to a lot of counseling, and it's grief, and it's horrific. You're dealing with trauma for a lot of them. And so I think about those moments and I'm like, why wouldn't we teach boys, this whole group of kids who saw this happen, why wouldn't we teach them that it's okay to cry? Like, that's what it's for. That is part of how we deal and process. And so that is something that we talked about. That is something that, you know, worst case scenario in that experience, but also in other situations, like, it's okay to cry. If you feel miserable and that makes you feel better and you just need to let it out, then let's you go do you, and that's fine. If you need to cry with me, come hug me and sit on the couch with me, or if you want to be alone, fine. Whatever your body needs right now. And so I think that is something that's really sad that we haven't taught to little boys, that they're not supposed to cry. And even, generationally, I'll see people in our family who make fun of like my boys if they cry, like little boys. And we always step in and say, "Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't make fun of them for crying. Like, let them go."
Mhm.
They're upset, and they're not being brats. They're not doing something wrong. They're not upset over something that we turned off the TV or something. Like, they're actually sad. Just let them cry. And how it's so uncomfortable for generations to see people cry, right? Because they were taught not to cry, and just breaking that narrative, just breaking it right down the middle, I think is so
Mhm.
important.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. We're going to wrap our conversation up here with
Okay.
I told Ellie we were going to get to these questions, and we're going to.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Is the
Okay.
final, these
Oof.
are lightning round questions, Ellie. So
Oh
off the
god.
top of your
Yeah.
head, off the cuff, I like to always end the show with a little bit more whimsical. These are based on the I'll Make a Man Out of You, Mulan's theme song, clarion call to action for men.
Okay.
And we took the chorus line and turned it into 4 quick questions. So, Ellie, there's no wrong answer to any of these
I'm
questions. So,
gonna panic.
whatever you got, that's what we got.
Okay.
All right, here we go, friends. What does it mean to be as swift as a coursing river?
I think it means to trust your gut instinct and your first response when something happens, and not wait to think it out, honestly. Maybe that's not right, but
No, like I said, there's no wrong answer.
Okay, okay,
Next,
okay.
how do you embody the force of a great typhoon?
Oh, I mean, oh, maybe ask my kids. I think it's that I'm not afraid to speak my mind. I'm just not afraid of it. I know there have been points in my life when I've been told I'm too loud or I need to stop talking, but I'm not afraid to.
Love it. How are you as strong as a raging fire?
Oh, because I'm a mom, and not that that needs to be the reason, but like for me, anybody steps in front of my kids, I will burn down the world.
You and my wife would get along really, really well.
I think so too.
Finally, how are you as mysterious as the dark side of the moon?
I think it's because a lot of these bad dudes, to take it back to the Epstein files, they've never heard of me, or they don't take me seriously because I just got here. And when people don't know you're coming, they don't know how to stop you. And so I feel like they don't know I'm coming. And so I'm just tiptoeing in.
Love that. And also to end, Ellie,
Sure.
how can people find you and support the work?
Aha. Okay. I am the panicked writer, still panicking regularly. I'm on Substack. I am on YouTube now, and everywhere else, good and bad socials. I am Red Pencil Script, which is my small business.
Love it. Loved it so much. Thank you, Ellie, for being here. You're amazing.
Thank you
Everyone,
for having
please
me.
subscribe to Ellie. Make sure you become a paid or free subscriber with her. Her work deserves all of it. And the work she's doing is going to help bring down this fucking pedo regime. And the pedo trials are coming, and we're going to get them, and everyone's going to
Yep.
be held accountable. And is a big part of that. But
Thank you.
also, thank you for all your discussion on masculinity today.
Yeah, of
I
course.
learned things. I hope people in our audience learn some things that they can bring home and start practicing them, friends. Bring them home, especially if you're men. Practice them, bring them to your kids, teach them, model them, and be them. Just suck less. That's all we got to do. That's all
Feels
we're
simple.
asking. Just suck less. You'll feel
Yeah.
better too. You'll feel better for it. So,
Yeah.
Ellie, thank you so much for being with me
Thanks,
today.
Nick. Let's do this again real soon.
Absolutely. We'll talk
Okay.
again soon. All right,
Okay.
everyone. Thanks for being here.
Bye.
We're sick of this shit, and now we're doing this shit. Thanks, y'all. Talk to you again soon.